March in Athens feels like a quiet transition, a moment where the city begins to shift from winter into spring. The light changes first, days grow longer, the sun feels warmer, and suddenly everything invites you outside again. It's also a beautiful time to explore before the high season begins, when the city still moves at a slower, more local pace. This month is all about culture. We'll be visiting archaeological sites and museums, taking advantage of quieter mornings and even a few days with free entrance. We'll walk through some of Athens' most historic neighborhoods, from Plaka to Monastiraki, watching the city slowly come to life. We will explore the Ancient Agora, discover hidden details inside museums, and experience how history and everyday life exist side by side here. There's also a more contemporary side to March, from cultural events and exhibitions to one of the most important wine events in Greece. And towards the end of the month, we'll experience Greek Independence Day, a time of tradition, celebration, and national pride.
Hi guys, I'm back with my monthly series and we are already in March. I hope you enjoyed watching the previous episodes. If you haven't watched them yet, please do so. Their links are below. I'm excited to show you more of the city, all the cultural things that are happening in Athens. Also, we're going to go to visit a few more museums, archaeological sites. Of course, these are cultural interests that you can explore at any time of year, but particularly in spring when it's still low season, it's actually quieter. So if you are thinking of visiting Athens during the quieter time, I strongly advise you that you do that. I'm looking forward to showing you more of local insights and how the city unfolds in every season. Come on, let's go.
I started my day early and was already in downtown Athens at around 9 a.m. on Sunday. The first Sunday of the month is part of the winter schedule, when many archaeological sites and museums offer free entrance. This runs until the end of March, and there are also a few additional dates throughout the year when entry is free, so it's always worth checking in advance. My first stop was at the Temple of Olympian Zeus. Construction of this temple began as early as the 6th century BC, but it wasn't completed until the Roman period, under Emperor Hadrian, which already tells you how ambitious this project was. When it was finally finished, it was one of the largest temples in the ancient world dedicated to Zeus, the king of the Olympian gods. Originally, the temple had 104 massive Corinthian columns. Today, only 15 remain standing, but even these give you a sense of the scale and grandeur. Just next to the temple, you'll also find Hadrian's Arch, a symbolic gateway that once separated the ancient Greek city from the Roman extension built by Hadrian. What makes this site so special is not just its history, but its location. You're standing right in the heart of Athens, with the Acropolis visible in the background and the modern city moving all around you. From here, you can walk to the Panathinaikos Stadium next, or to the National Gardens, which are just across the street, but I'll show you this in my next video. What I want to show you is that after years of construction, the pedestrian walkway along Vasilissis Olgas has finally been completed. The space feels open, clean, and beautifully walkable. Here you'll pass the important monuments, including the statue of Alexander the Great and the marble sculpture Hellas and Lord Byron. This 3-meter-tall composition depicts Greece personified as a woman, crowning Lord Byron with a palm branch, a symbol of immortality, offered as a gesture of gratitude for his role in the Greek War of Independence. From here I then walked through the side streets of Plaka. This early on Sunday morning, the city still feels asleep. Empty streets, closed shutters, it's a rare moment of stillness in one of Athens' most visited neighborhoods. Now let's continue to the Roman Agora. This area was developed during the Roman period, mainly in the 1st century BC, as Athens expanded under Roman rule. It became the new commercial and administrative center of the city, gradually replacing the Ancient Agora. This space that you see here functioned as a marketplace surrounded by colonnades, shops, and public buildings where trade and daily life would unfold. One of the most remarkable structures here is the Tower of the Winds, an octagonal marble tower that served as both a clock and a weather station. Each side represents one of the 8 winds, and in antiquity it combined a sundial, a water clock, and a wind vane, making it one of the earliest examples of meteorological technology. You'll also notice the Gate of Athena Archigetis at the entrance, a monumental gateway funded by Julius Caesar and Augustus, marking the importance of the site during the Roman times. Within the site stands the Fethiye Mosque, originally built in the 15th century during the Ottoman period shortly after the Ottoman conquest of Athens. It was constructed on the site of an earlier Christian basilica and later underwent renovations in the 17th century. Over time, the mosque lost its religious function and was used for different purposes, including as a storage space and military facility. Today it has been restored and occasionally hosts exhibitions. Inside there's a small display that traces the journeys of Apostle Paul, who visited Athens in the 1st century AD and delivered his speech on the Areopagus nearby. It's a space where layers of history come together, ancient Greek, Roman, Ottoman, and early Christian, all within a single walk.
It's actually Sunday and it's still quite early, so it's just around 10 in the morning. I came in around 9 o'clock and it was perfect. You really get to enjoy the solitude. I'm a morning person. I always find that it's particularly nice to explore any city before it actually fully wakes up, and you can really pay attention to the architecture, to the way life unfolds in a destination.
As I walked along Pandrossou Street, the shops slowly began to open, souvenirs being placed outside, shutters lifting, and step by step you can see how the city starts to fill with life. By the time I reached Monastiraki Square, the first crowds were already gathering. Here I met up with my friend and we made a quick stop for brunch at the brunch factory located on Athens Street. Just a short pause and a cup of coffee before continuing the day. After enjoying our brunch and coffee, we walked towards the end of Ermou, leading into the Physio flea market. The weather was beautiful, bright and sunny, and of course we picked up a Martaki bracelet, a simple red and white thread bracelet which is traditionally worn throughout March. It's a small ritual to protect from the early spring sun. Next, we visited the Numismatic Museum. The museum is housed in one of the most beautiful neoclassical buildings in Athens, the Iliou Melathron, which was once the residence of Heinrich Schliemann, the German archaeologist best known for his excavations of Troy and Mycenae. The building itself is a story of its own. It was designed in the late 19th century by the German architect Ernst Ziller, who worked closely with the Danish architect Theophil Hansen, one of the key figures behind Athens' neoclassical identity and the architect of landmark buildings like the Academy of Athens. Ziller was actually Hansen's student and collaborator, and through this relationship he became one of the most important architects shaping modern Athens. Schliemann, who had a deep admiration for ancient Greece, commissioned Ziller to design his residence, and the result was a home inspired directly by classical ideals. Even the name Iliou Melathron translates to Palace of Ilium, a clear reference to Troy. The museum itself is one of the oldest public museums in Greece, established in 1834, the same year as the National Archaeological Museum, and today it holds one of the most important numismatic collections in the world. Its collection includes over 500,000 objects. Not only coins, but also treasures, Byzantine lead seals, medals, and precious stones. Inside the museum takes you through the history of currency, from ancient Greece all the way to the modern era. On the first floor, you can learn how coins were minted in the ancient Greek world, from the techniques used to the symbols and imagery that defined each city-state. You'll see coins like Athenian tetradrachm marked with the Owl of Athena, a symbol of wisdom, but also one of the most widely recognized currencies of the ancient world. As you move to the upper floors, the story expands beyond Greece, with coins from the Roman Empire, the Byzantine period, the medieval world, and into contemporary times. There's also a section that explores how coins are used today, connecting the past with the systems we still rely on in everyday life. What makes this museum particularly interesting is how it transforms something so familiar, money, into a powerful historical narrative. Coins were not just used for transactions, they carried messages. They projected power, honored rulers, marked victories, and reflected cultural identity, almost like small pieces of history passing from hand to hand. And as you walk through the museum, you begin to understand how Athens was not only a center of philosophy and culture, but also deeply connected to trade networks that stretched across the Mediterranean and beyond. After exploring the interior, we stepped outside into the garden cafe, and this is one of those hidden gems in Athens, right in the center of the city, yet completely removed from the noise, surrounded by trees, shaded seating, and a calm, almost timeless atmosphere. It's the kind of place where you can just sit for a while, have a coffee, and simply pause before continuing your day. The Numismatic Museum leads you towards one of the most elegant architectural corners of Athens, the Athenian Trilogy. Interestingly, it's one of those landmarks that many people pass by every day without really stopping to take it in. Set along Panepistimiou Street, just a few minutes from Syntagma Square, this three-building complex stands quietly between the traffic and the rhythm of the modern city. And yet it's one of the most important examples of neoclassical architecture in Athens. The trilogy consists of the University of Athens, the Academy, and the National Library, three buildings that were designed to reflect the cultural and intellectual identity of modern Greece. Although they look ancient, they're actually much more recent, built in the 19th century after Athens became the capital of the newly established Greek state. At that time, there was a strong desire to reconnect the modern city with its ancient past, to create a visual and symbolic link to the birthplace of philosophy, science, and democracy. This is where neoclassical architecture comes in, an artistic movement that spread across Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries, inspired by the forms and ideals of ancient Greece and Rome, and Athens became one of its most important stages. The vision for the city's transformation was set in motion under King Otto, who wanted Athens to reflect its historical significance as a global cultural center. To bring this vision to life, he commissioned the Danish architects Christian and Theophil Hansen, who along with Ernst Ziller and other European artists helped shape the architectural identity of modern Athens. Right at the center stands the University of Athens, or Panepistimiou as the locals call it. It was the first of the three to build, and it gave the name to the street and even the metro station. It was designed by Christian Hansen and reflects a more restrained and balanced approach. The Academy of Athens and the National Library were designed by Theophil Hansen, and they are more grandeur and elaborate in their design. These are the most magnificent buildings in Athens. Make sure to see them up close. For late lunch, we made a reservation at Seychelles in Metaxourgio. It's a place I had visited years ago, and it's now even better. The menu feels more refined, more confident, and the liver dish was exceptional. We end our evening with a leisurely walk towards the city area, enjoying the soft golden light of Athens at this hour. On the 6th of March, I was back in the center of Athens to explore a few more cultural sites. It was Melina Mercury Day, which means that many archaeological sites and museums offer free entrance. However, it's important to note that this doesn't apply everywhere. For example, the Acropolis Museum is free on this specific day, but not on the first Sunday of the month during the winter season, so it's always worth checking in advance. I got off at the Acropolis metro station and walked along the Onision Areopagitou Street, one of the most beautiful pedestrian streets in Athens leading towards the Ancient Agora. Since it was 6th of March, entry to the site was once again free, but because it was a Friday, a working day, the experience felt completely different, compared to the previous Sunday when the city was full of locals taking advantage of the free entry. This time it was much quieter, almost empty. And a small but useful tip, the main entrance to the Ancient Agora is currently located on Apostolou Pavlou Street. That's the pedestrian street that leads from Theseo. The entrance, which was on Andrianou Street, which is right next to the train tracks, is temporarily closed due to ongoing works. And now we're inside the Ancient Agora. This was once the heart of ancient Athens, a space where everything happened. Politics, philosophy, trade, daily life, all unfolded here. From as early as the 6th century BC, this was the city's main gathering place. Citizens would come here not only to buy and sell goods, but to exchange ideas, debate, and participate in the early foundations of democracy. This is where some of the most important figures in history once walked, including Socrates, who spent much of his time here engaging in dialogue with Athenians. As you enter the site, you begin to understand its scale. And one of the first things you come across, almost immediately as you come in from the entrance, is the Temple of Hephaestus, rising slightly above the Agora on the hill of Kolonos Agoreos. It's one of the best preserved ancient temples in all of Greece. Dedicated to Hephaestus, the god of fire and metalworking, it dates back to the 5th century BC, around the same time as the Parthenon. Its location here reflects the character of the area, which was once home to craftsmen and metal workers. What makes it especially striking is how intact it remains, with its Doric columns still standing, giving you a very clear sense of what an ancient Greek temple would have originally looked like.
Good morning, guys. I'm back at the Agora today. It's the 6th of March and it's a free entrance because it's Melina Mercury Day. I was here on Sunday and it was so busy, but because it's a weekday and most of the Greeks are working, this is perfect. It's so quiet. Okay, there's like some people cutting grass. Please mind the noise, but it's really peaceful. So the thing is that obviously, yes, of course, on the weekend, a lot of locals try to take the opportunity and advantage of the free entrance as well, which is through certain months of the winter, and it's finishing now in March. But if you come here earlier in the season and actually can be here on the 6th of March, you can enjoy the solitude here and really admire the temples and the place.
One of the most important routes running through the Agora was the Panathenaic Way. This was the main ceremonial road of ancient Athens, used during the Panathenaic procession, a major festival held in honor of the goddess Athena. The procession would pass through the Agora and continue all the way up to the Acropolis. And now we arrive at the Stoa of Attalos. This is one of the most impressive reconstructions on the site. Originally built in the 2nd century BC by King Attalos II of Pergamon, it functioned as a covered walkway lined with shops, a place for both commerce and social interaction. Today it houses the Agora Museum. Inside you'll find a collection of everyday objects, pottery, tools, inscriptions, all offering insight into daily life in ancient Athens. The exhibition is thoughtfully structured, guiding you through different periods of the Agora's history. It begins with important remains from the Bronze and Iron Age, including burial findings that reveal some of the earliest activities in the area. As you move through the space, the display transitions into the classical period before continuing into Roman and Byzantine eras, showing how the Agora evolved long after its peak in ancient Athens. What makes this museum particularly interesting is that it focuses less on grand monuments and more on how people actually lived. From voting tokens to household items, you begin to see the human side of history.
You see how quiet it is? It's like completely different scene, but it's so peaceful. So if you can, like, try to come in the morning, I think that's the ideal thing to do. And anyway, generally, anywhere you go sightseeing, the earlier, the better.
Towards the end of my visit, I came across a more contemporary installation, a sculpture bringing together two great thinkers, Socrates and Confucius. Created by Chinese artist Wu Weishan, this piece was part of the cultural exchange between Greece and China. The two philosophers are shown in conversation, meeting symbolically across time and culture. It's a powerful idea, a dialogue between East and West, between two civilizations that, despite their differences, share a deep philosophical tradition. It's a quiet reminder that even thousands of years later, these conversations are still ongoing. Now come along with me to Oenorama, the largest exhibition of Greek wines in the world. Now in its 32nd year, it has become one of the most important events on the Greek wine calendar, bringing together both professionals and wine lovers from Greece and abroad. This year it took place at a new venue, Onassis Ready, a contemporary industrial space with a strong architectural identity, hosting its first major external event. To make access easier, shuttle buses were organized from Sigru Fix metro station, departing every 30 minutes throughout the day. Over 250 producers were present, with more than 2,500 wines to taste. One of the highlights was the Assyrtiko wine bar, dedicated entirely to one of Greece's most iconic grape varieties, with labels from different regions showcasing its versatility and character. There was also a section called Wine Revelations, featuring smaller producers with limited production, bringing fresh energy and new voices into the scene. After visiting Oenorama, we stopped for dinner at a small spot near Sigru Station, simple, local, and full of flavor. Fava with truffle oil, lukumades with manuri, and beautifully cooked liver. I'll leave the details of this place in the comments box below. One of the highlights of the month for me was attending a press event at the Museum of Cycladic Art for the exhibition of Jeff Koons, and most importantly, having the opportunity to see him in person and listen to him speak about his work. The exhibition takes place inside the Stathatos mansion, a neoclassical residence designed by Ernst Ziller in the late 19th century. And what makes it even more interesting is that the main piece, Balloon Venus Lesbigue, is displayed in what was once the mansion's living room. You still see the fireplace, the gilded details, and right at the center stands this monumental mirror-polished sculpture. It's inspired by the prehistoric Venus of Lesbigue, a small figurine carved around 28,000 years ago. In contrast, Koons transforms it into something large, reflective, and immersive, yet the form remains instantly recognizable. The exhibition also includes references to the Paleolithic Venus figurines, some of the earliest representations of the human form, dating back as far as 35,000 years and found across Europe. These were small handheld objects meant to be carried and lived with, expressing ideas of survival, identity, and shared human experience. The exhibition runs until the end of August and is definitely worth visiting while you're in Athens. March is also the month of Greek Independence Day, one of the most important national celebrations in Greece. It marks the beginning of the Greek Revolution in 1821, a defining moment that led to the creation of the modern Greek state. But before the celebrations begin, I want to take you to one of the most symbolic experiences you can have in Athens at any time of year, the Evzones. I visited them on a separate day, outside of the main celebrations, to experience this ritual in a quieter setting. The Evzones are the presidential guards of Greece, and you can see them in two main locations. The first is here, at the presidential mansion, where the atmosphere is much calmer, more intimate. and the second is at Syntagma Square, in front of the Hellenic Parliament, where they guard the tomb of the unknown soldier. The changing of the guard takes place every hour, on the hour, throughout the day. But if you want to see something more elaborate, there's a full ceremonial changing every Sunday at 11 a.m. in Syntagma Square. What makes this experience so unique is the precision. Every movement is slow, deliberate, almost meditative. There's a rhythm to it, a silence that draws your attention to every detail. And then, of course, there's the uniform. The fustanella, the pleated skirt, has 400 pleats, each symbolizing a year of Ottoman rule. The red fez represents sacrifice, while the long black tassel is said to symbolize tears. Their shoes, the tsarouchia, with their distinctive pompons, are one of the most iconic elements of the uniform. Each pair is entirely handmade from hard red leather and weighs around 3 kilograms. The sole is reinforced with 120 nails, which create that distinctive sound with every step. And just before each movement begins, you'll often notice another soldier step in. This is the observer. Unlike the Evzones, he wears a modern Greek army uniform and plays a crucial role behind the scenes. His responsibility is to ensure the safety and well-being of the guards, who must remain completely still during their watch. If needed, the Evzone can signal him by lightly striking the butt of their rifle on the ground. You'll also see him step forward quietly to adjust their uniform, wipe away sweat or tears, or make sure everything is exactly as it should be. It's a subtle interaction, but it reveals just how demanding this role is. Nothing is left to chance. Every detail, every moment, every pause is part of a carefully maintained ritual. Even today, becoming an Evzone requires strict physical criteria and intense training, with a strong emphasis on discipline and precision. We are now at Syntagma Square, in front of the Hellenic Parliament. The building itself has its own story. Originally constructed in the 19th century as the royal palace for King Otto, it later became the seat of the Greek Parliament. Its architecture is more restrained compared to other neoclassical buildings in Athens, simple, symmetrical, and monumental. In front of it lies the tomb of the unknown soldier, a monument dedicated to fallen Greek soldiers. You'll notice the relief sculpture at the center, a fallen warrior depicted in a classical style. Around it, inscriptions reference historic battles, creating a quiet space of remembrance in the middle of the city. And this is where the Evzones continue their guard with the same precision, hour after hour. And finally, let's enjoy the Greek Independence Day Parade in Glyfada, which takes place on the 25th of March. While the main celebration takes place in Syntagma Square, you'll find parades happening all across the country on this day. It's something that brings people together, a moment where history, tradition, and community all come into focus. And that's Athens in March, a city that doesn't rush to impress, but quietly reveals itself. One walk, one story, one season at a time. If you've enjoyed this video, I would love to see you back on my channel. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.